Hi everybody, welcome to the Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, live broadcast and podcast. Today we are diving into how to train for and successfully get round a 215-mile ultra in 100 hours, aka race across Scotland or something like that. Oh, what is it called?
Yeah.
I did write it down.
Yeah, it is. It's the race across Scotland.
Race across Scotland. Yes, there we are. GB Ultras Race across Scotland. And a few other patron questions with the splendiferous, the fantabulous coach and physio, Tim Pigott from P3 Coaching. How are you today, Tim?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, all good. Back from holidays and getting back in the swing of things again this week. So, yeah.
Good. You do look nice and tanned.
Yeah, managing to, whenever there is a little bit of sun, get out and try and see it.
Yes.
Yeah, not that we've had a little bit more recently, but yeah, it's not been a great summer up until now. But yeah, we're getting there maybe.
Yes, yeah, it was a good week to have your summer in the last week because it has been a little bit nice. Good. Well, before we ask Tim millions and millions of questions, as we are wont to do every month on this channel, we firstly need to say thanks to the sponsors of this episode, NAC Sports Nutrition. So I don't really like gels, but I have been forcing myself to use the ones that they make on my runs, and I actually really like them. As with all their products, they're not too sickly and sweet, so they slip down really easily, and I really recommend them, especially the chocolate flavour one, which I really like. There's also a maple syrup type one as well. So make your order using the code WildGingerRunning for 15% off at uk.nat.com. So 200, I'm really number dyslexic for some reason. It's 200, not 21.5 miles. It's 215 miles in 100 hours. We're covering this because patron Tina, who is watching live now, hi Tina, thank you so much. She upped her pledge to the tier where she gets to have a say in what we talk about on Wild Ginger Running sometimes. So first up, we're going to talk about how Tina and anyone else can best train for a 215-mile race. GB Ultras Race across Scotland next August in particular. So she's got some questions, hasn't she, Tim, which she did put on the Facebook group, and I'm going to just pop up here so that everybody can see. So I guess we just go through them one by one, and then anything else you think is important to mention, and then we'll do a couple more patron questions at the end as well. So if you're watching live, just chip in if you've got any questions for Tim to expand upon as we go through these things. But yeah, Tina's written, I guess the main things that come to mind are foot care and how often do you change foot care? Anything I can do to prepare my feet? Most of the dropouts this year were due to foot issues. Waterproof socks for the boggy sections. And we'll stop there because then she's going on to fuel. So we'll start off with the feet. What would you advise, Coach Tim?
Yeah, feet is a big one for a lot of ultra runners, in particular when we are going into the sort of 100-mile plus events. And again, it's sort of terrain specific as well. So if you are going through terrain which is going to be wet and boggy, which Scotland potentially can be any time of year.
Always.
Or even if it's somewhere sort of hotter, where again you're dealing with sweating and moisture from that perspective. You need to test in training because there's lots of things out there, and you'll read about different creams and lotions and potions you can be doing, different taping strategies, different socks, etc., etc. Everyone's got their own advice on this one, and they're all going to be right, but it's finding the right one for you. So it does come down to testing and training. Hopefully you're not going from park run to 215 miles and therefore got some longer endurance experience where you can test things. I'm a little bit of an outlier. I tend to just use things like talcum powder, and that seems to work well for me. I know a lot of people who that does not work for at all. Some people will tape their feet almost entirely. For me, that always tends to cause problems. So this is what I mean. It's about trying these different strategies, testing these different creams, trench foot creams, gurney goo creams, anti-friction creams. They can work really well for some people. I know from personal experience that they can often cause more problems. So it's about testing. So I was thinking about what do you need on your skin, if anything, And then obviously it's thinking about the next layer, which is going to be your socks. A lot of people think about their shoes, but they don't think about their socks, and they just chuck any old sock on. So again, it's thinking about what kind of material works best for you. Do you need something sort of more natural, sort of merino wool mix type sock? Do you need something like the multi-layer, the twin skin type socks? They're sort of the old schools, the sort of 1,000-mile socks. Sidas have their twin skin anti-blister socks, which I've never got on with the sort of 1,000-mile socks in the past, but I've had some of their Sidas ones, and yeah, they're actually really comfortable. I tend to prefer just a single layer sock, but those are another option. Are you somebody that tends to get blisters between your toes, on the sort of web spaces or the kind of skin between the toes? So do you need something like an inji sock, a toe sock? And that obviously works really well for some people. Or do you find that spreads your feet too much in the shoe, just a little bit too much volume and squashes the forefoot? So it depends on the shape of your foot. So I was thinking about those different sock choices there. And that also comes into the environment and the terrain. So are you likely to have wet feet? Or are you likely to have dry feet? Do you need your shoes to be able to breathe? Or are you going through wetter terrain where your shoes are going to get, sopping wet? A lot of people then think about, wanting waterproof shoes or waterproof socks, which are very good at stopping the water getting in, but they don't let any sweat or water that does get in get out again. So then you run the risk of actually, yes, you've stopped water getting in, maybe it's waterproof shoes or waterproof socks, but actually your feet can then still get quite macerated because of water, sweat accumulating within that.
Yeah, and I never find waterproof socks quite as comfy as actual socks. Like, they haven't really nailed the comfort on the inside of the sock, because I wore waterproof socks to start with on the Cape Wrath Ultra. And yeah, I just got blisters, and I ended up just wearing a kind of a quite thick sock in the shoe because it was nice and padded. And then the sock would get wet, and then it would dry out again because it was quite weirdly hot. Yeah.
And just you running will just squeeze that water back out of your shoe and back out of your sock again. So a well draining shoe is often going to be better than a waterproof shoe. If it is going to be hotter, then is it a shoe that will breathe well and doesn't allow your foot to get too hot within the shoe itself? Have you got the capacity for expansion? So your feet are going to swell. So, her question here is, how often do you need to change your footwear? Well, it'll depend on how much your feet swell, if they swell at all. Some people can manage on a single pair of shoes and just go all the way through, and others will need to size up half a size or even size up a full size if their feet swell significantly. For me, I've got really bad varicose veins on one leg because of the fasciotomy that I had, where it kind of cut all the connective tissue to let the leg swell. When I broke my leg, that is. So I get a fair bit of swelling, sort of foot and ankle swelling, particularly on that side. So I'll use compression socks and compression calf guards. So again, maybe looking at a calf length compression sock or compression sleeves to minimise that pooling of fluid in your lower limbs, in your lower leg and into your foot and ankle. That will maybe minimise how much swelling you then get in your foot and therefore needing to size up. But if you find those uncomfortable, then yes, you may be looking at a shoe that will allow that expansion in terms of width and volume there. So is it a shoe that's got the ability to kind of loosen off those laces? Is it quick laces, the kind of almost like elasticy type laces? Is it the boa lacing systems that we're seeing on more shoes, which I think is fantastic for just those quick adjustments where you can just quickly loosen it off, get a little bit more volume in your foot. So thinking about that, and then yes, if it is something like, we'll use the Races Across Scotland as an example, you've got a couple of options in terms of drop backs. So yeah, certainly you're going to want to have some other options in terms of footwear where they are maybe that half a size or even a full size bigger. What some of the guys do, we've had doing things like the spine race, is start with that slightly larger shoe, with maybe an extra insole in there and that second pair of socks. So it kind of fills that volume up. And then when you start to notice your feet are starting to swell, when you get to an aid station, all you need to do is take out that extra thin insole or take off that extra pair of socks. And then that allows you to carry on using that pair of shoes because you've given yourself that extra little bit of volume.
Oh, so doing it the other way around. I hadn't thought about that before. Yeah, I suppose you could put 2 insoles in, couldn't you? And 2 pairs of socks. But that might be quite a big
sometimes
difference.
I'll use just a very, very thin, like extra millimeter long insole, just no structure to it.
Yeah.
But it just takes up a little bit more volume in the shoe. And then if you need to then lose that volume and give your foot some more expansion space, you just slip that out and it does give you that extra space in the shoe.
Yeah.
So that can work quite well, rather than thinking, oh, my foot's starting to swell, but it's another 20 miles to the next aid station where I've got my drop bag. You can just deal with it there and then.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I like that.
So that's certainly something to think about.
Yeah, and I'm supposing in terms of preparing her feet for this type of thing, is the only thing you can do just do a few long events and see what happens to your feet and where they're likely to get hot spots or what's likely to happen to them, and then listen to that blister care chat that I did with Dr. Nikki Summers to work out the best way to care for the things that might happen to your feet. Or
it is about
you can't really tell,
learning
can
your
you?
craft. It's learning your craft of knowing what works for you, where you may get blisters. I mean, I know you personally have suffered with blisters of various descriptions and have been on a journey to find that solution.
Really annoying.
And that's what people need to go through and learning which combination of different socks or creams or taping techniques work best for you. But then also having a good action plan for if you start to notice something, can you deal with it there and then? But before we maybe move on to that, you mentioned about preparing your feet. So again, is it about going to a chiropodist or podiatrist maybe to have some foot care in advance and looking at where are you getting these hard patches in terms of whether it is calluses, corns, or even just bits of hard skin, but understanding why you get those. It's the Chesterton fence principle, which is, if you come across a fence on a piece of land, don't just take it down. It was there for a reason.
Okay.
Work out the reason first.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your feet, if you've got patches of hard skin, what a lot of people go and do is they go and, rub those calluses off. Well, why was that callus there in the first place? It's there for your body's put that hard skin there for a purpose.
Yeah.
Yes, that hard skin might be a little bit irritating, but it's there for a reason. So why? Is it the way that your foot is moving in the shoe or not moving in the shoe? Do you need to work on more support for your foot? Do you need an insole to give you a little bit more arch support, fill in the spaces of your foot? Are you looking at more mobility around the ankle or mobility around the forefoot? Is it about more strength and stability from the smaller intrinsic muscles? So it's looking at the why are you getting these blisters? Why are you getting these patches of hard skin? Understanding that and then putting those actions in place kind of in preparation. But yeah, some people will spend a lot of time moisturizing their feet in the build up to an event, so they've got nice soft skin. That can work for some people. I know others it causes horrendous problems. They've done that and it's caused more problems. I know other people that have toughened up their feet, soaking them in surgical spirit. That old classic from sort of 30, 40 years. Yeah,
that's what I grew up with, doing that.
Yeah, that's what I used to do, sort of back in the military days, which can toughen up your feet. But of course, that toughening up your feet can also cause problems. So it's working out which approach works best for you.
Yes.
Certainly making sure that you've got good nail care, and that's kind of day to day in terms of just good foot hygiene, good foot care. It may well be that over the course of a long ultra like this, when you do get to those aid stations, you may want to take your socks and shoes off, get some air to your feet, help them recover. But then there's others who, if you've got your feet nicely taped up, you've got nice supportive socks on, you can just do the whole thing in one go. I remember a lot of people know the name Gary Chapman. He's sort of famous from the spine races. And he's done the full length of the spine without even taking his socks off.
Wow.
Taped at the beginning, gone all the way through, finished, and has zero problems with his feet. Because he's learned
hate him.
that approach, his taping technique that works for him. And he can just do the whole thing without taking his socks off, whereas others need to take them off. But it's one of those where if you are starting to get bothers and any blisters, problems, be bothered about those bothers and act on them soon.
I think that's where I have come a cropper in everything, because I'm so caught up in I need to keep going. I need to, I've been running with this person and we've had a nice chat, so I need to stay with them. Or like even on a long race like Cape Wrath Ultra, you don't want people to come past you, like, because you're just stopped. And it is really annoying. I did have to stop twice on the UTS, and I think I took probably about half an hour of stopping 3 times to put some like patches on my my inner arch before I got some different shoes, the Saucony Exodus Ultras 2s that I really, really enjoyed wearing. So before I got those shoes, I was constantly getting a blister in that same place. I think that my blisters are always different because I'm testing shoes, so I'm always wearing like a different pair of shoes, so that doesn't help because it's always different from the different shoes and the different socks I'm always wearing. But it is really hard, isn't it? And it's almost like you just want to buy like every single sock possible, every single insole possible, and then a few different shoes and just keep trying them out, and it's just really expensive.
Yes, I mean, that's it. I mean, you and I are in a fortunate position in terms of being able to try these different products.
Yeah, that's the main reason that I do this. It's because I'm trying to search for that. I did go on a quest, didn't I, the last 2 years to find the perfect shoe, and I did find the Saucony Exodus Ultra 2s, and I also have just found the Innovate Trailfly wide fit shoes, which are really, really good. But obviously normal people can't do this, so you've got to just make mistakes. And Hannah's watching live as well, and Hannah's done loads of long distance races, and most recently a 24-hour race around the track. Well done, Hannah. And
wow.
She says definitely it's a learning curve, trying things out, learning from mistakes. I've been a convert this year to merino socks. And she says she still wishes there was a magic wand to help with foot pain from simply being on your feet for too long, for so long. So I guess that's something that no one can get away from.
It is about, conditioning yourself to an extent, which we'll maybe come on to in terms of the sort of the training strategies for something like this. But yeah, I think you've obviously referred back to the interview that you did. Just looking up on my bookshelf there, but it's the classic book Fixing Your Feet. I can't see where it is on my bookshelf now, but that is pretty much the sort of the go-to Bible. So if you haven't got that in your library, then I would recommend getting that one, reading that, learning these different strategies, and then testing and trialing them in training to find out what works best for you.
Yes, I'll put a link to that in the film description below. Let me just write that down. Fix Feet book. And
I'd give another sort of a biased plug, but again, sidas with their insoles. The upper layer there is a anti-slip, so again it gives you that grip. So your foot isn't going to be sliding around in the shoe as much, and that works again very well with their socks, which have got these kind of grip bands on them. So again, it's just getting rid of another one of those potential problem aspects, which is the kind of mechanics of the foot sliding and therefore causing friction and causing the shearing forces between the skin and the tissues underneath. So, there are other products out there, but those are the ones that, I've tried. And again, I did a review of various insoles for you kind of a few years back, and looking at those different insole products that you can be looking at. So I think it's certainly about trialing aftermarket insoles for your shoes rather than only using the ones that come with the shoes. And like I say, yes, I'm biased. I would recommend sidas. There are other ones out there, but I would certainly be looking at, do you need an alternative insole to add into your shoe to match your particular foot shape and give you the support that you need. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you did that 7 of the best insoles test, didn't you? Yeah, and I think I've reviewed some of the sidas socks as well. So that will be really interesting to I'll just put those in the film description as well for anybody to look at. But yeah, it really is. When you told me about insoles, that really sort of opened up my world, because before that, all I'd been trying was shoes, and not really even thinking about the sock, like just whether it was thick or thin kind of thing. And then when you mentioned insoles, it really made a difference to me, because even though I've got these amazing Innovate Trailfly wide fit shoes, the insole that they supply you with, which is a really nice bouncy, it looks great, like boomerang bouncy insole, I found that it was like sandpaper abrading my feet after just like 5 or so miles. And so I popped the sidas insole in there, and although that insole, it holds your foot to the insole and doesn't slip around, it doesn't sandpaper it in that same way. So I just actually found that the only sort of downside of that Innovate shoe was the insole, and that was easy to replace. So yeah.
And the thing is, all shoe manufacturers, the insole they put in there is, there's very little technology, thought, expense spent on the insole. Because Scarpa, fine, but the insoles that come with their shoes, they are essentially, cheap thin layers of some simple foam, with the almost expectation that people are going to swap it out for their own preferred insole.
Yes.
And this is all manufacturers, all different shoes. Because the danger is that if a manufacturer was to design their own, more developed and therefore more expensive insole to go in their shoe, that's going to bump the price of the whole shoe up by another £30.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily even know.
And that's maybe a £30 insole that's going to get taken out and chucked in the bin when the buyer then just puts their own insole back in. So that's why there's always this sort of battle between, we need to ensure that the insole is good.
Good enough.
But not as good as it maybe could be.
It's just a bit of padding.
It's always a challenge. Yeah, exactly.
I've never really thought about it like that before. I must sort of, next shoe I review, I must sort of say that in the shoe review to make people more aware. And Kingsley's got a really good question around insoles, actually. He said, on this question, how long do insoles last and how often do you need to change them?
I mean, the industry standard is essentially as long as the life of the shoe. So it depends on whether you're swapping it between lots of different shoes or whether it's just straight in with a brand new pair of shoes, and they'll probably last as long as the shoes last. Conditions dependent, of course, and how well you look after it, clean them, not clean them. In the winter months, some of the insoles that I put in, the foam degrades a lot quicker because of the nature of the bogs that I'm running in, and just the mud and the kind of the acidity of the
little bits of grit that always get underneath,
grit and everything get in there, and it just gets in the shoe, gets in between the insole and the shoe. And even if you're taking them out to dry, it's just the nature of running through grit and bog and mud and rubbish. In the winter months, I do find that the insoles don't last as long. But the short answer is pretty much as long as the shoe lasts. And if you're a type of person that wears your shoes out until they literally break, then quite long. But again, it's a question of, if you are putting an aftermarket insole in there, is that insole still doing the job that it was designed for in terms of filling that space, of your arch around the kind of ball of the foot? Is it supporting that foot in the way that it's designed to? Or has it collapsed to the point where there's dints and divots, or when you've just put your foot on that insole, it doesn't actually rise up and meet the whole surface of your foot? Okay, cool. Kingsley says cheers for that. He's been doing lots of ultras this year and he's picked up some niggles, so he's going to get some sidas
insoles, I think. So there you go. Well done, Tim. You've sold a pair there. Well done.
On your Patreon page, I'll put a discount code up for your guys.
Oh, thank you. Yes, if you're a patron, you'll get Tim's discount code for sidas. So that's very exciting. Okay, cool.
So what was the next question?
Yeah, the next question is...
I think we covered that.
Fueling strategy. So she says, obviously it's going to be more substantial because it's a long way. You've got 100 hours to complete it, which is several days. So it's more substantial than just some gels.
Absolutely.
So yeah, fueling strategy. What would your fueling strategy be for 215 miles then, Tim?
So this is definitely going to be moving into the more real food world, isn't it? So again, it's things you need to try in training. The intensity you'll be going at is obviously going to be less than a marathon or 50k or even 100k. So you're going to be able to tolerate more real food, and you're going to need more real food. You're going to need more fats and proteins in the mix there. So it's looking at what kind of combination works best for you, and what sort of feeding frequency works best for you. So are you dropping it down to just something every half an hour? Is it going to be a sort of a larger bolus of food every kind of hour or so, and then just little snacks in between? So these are things you want to test and try in training.
Because it seems like it's going to be a lot of walking, like, to be totally honest. If she's saying it might take her even 90 of the 100 hours that she's allocated for it. So
exactly. Yeah.
The first sort of 30 miles, I always think of one of these things, you can sort of jog along bits and bobs, walking up the hills, but then you're just
going to be hiking the hills,
hiking with poles, aren't you?
Jogging the flats and downs.
It's stuff you can eat easily with poles, and or putting poles away quickly just for a month.
Yeah, just tuck them under your arm.
Yeah, so it's just stuff you like to eat.
Exactly. So it's going to be
pudding.
high calorie food. So it's getting as much density in there as possible. So yeah, you got to try different things there. So some people will be out there with salty potatoes, pizza slices, sandwiches. Is it going to be a simple thing? So in your drop bags, do you want something that's just easy to get down? Classic example would be things like pot noodles. When certainly you're starting to get a bit tired, certainly going to be a little bit dehydrated. You may not want to be chewing anything too substantial.
Yeah. Something
like a pot noodle will just slip down super easy.
So yes, you should look at like whether you get access to hot water and things like that at the aid points. Like surely they're going to offer you some kind of like hot meal maybe halfway round, or like a few hot meals. Definitely look at the checkpoints, because
so it's looking at what's available at the checkpoints. What can you have in your drop bag, and what are you going to be carrying yourself, and what's going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of calories, but also balancing out the weight, because of course you've got to carry all this kit. And for these races, there's a fairly substantial kit list that you've got to be carrying. So we'll come on to that in terms of thinking about the weight that you're carrying. But some people are making their own flapjacks, sandwiches. I know a guy will do these things on sushi, because again, it's the rice, it's the healthy fats, healthy proteins as well.
Yeah, and make your own energy balls and stuff out of peanuts.
Yeah, kind of rice balls
and things, and squishing things together.
So all these type of things there. But certainly what we think about for this kind of duration is trying to combat that taste fatigue. So it's variety. Making sure you've got your salts as well as your sweets and savouries. So you've got to think about those kind of three things. You want, something sweet, something salty, something savoury. And then making sure what you've got is options within each of those. So, certainly it might be, towards the end of the race when, things are hard and you're just looking to get simple calories down, it's going to get simpler and simpler. You might be ending up on the gels at the end of the race, but certainly do that towards the end rather than at the beginning and then find you can't even stomach a simple gel. So, push them for later on. It might be, your simple sugars, it might be, your Kindle mint cakes or something like that towards the end.
Yeah, I wonder if she's allowed crew as well on that race. Like if you've got a support team, could they fry you up some bacon or something?
I think it's kind of like checkpoint 3 onwards or something. So there's certainly you allowed support crew, but I think it's towards the latter end of the race.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so there's looking at, different options within each of those kind of categories of, different options of sweet stuff, different options of salty stuff, different options of savory stuff. I know guys that will kind of switch over to just mushed up bags of hula hoops because it's just easy to get down and it's a bit salty. Whether it's kind of salted nuts, the classic trail mix.
Yeah.
Some people like a bag of, mixed up sweet and salty trail mix. So the handful you're picking out, you don't know whether you're getting a salty one or a sweet one, depending on what comes out the back. So there's, different ways you can kind of play that game. And it's also just entertaining the brain as well, as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's kind of like I view ultras as an opportunity to go down that aisle in the supermarket that you don't usually walk down, like the one with all the biscuits and the chocolate in, that you're like, well, I don't need that in like day-to-day life, even though I would like it. But that's the opportunity to go down and get all that stuff.
You just want calories. Exactly that. You just need calories. Marzipan is another classic one. I'm doing supporting someone's BG at the weekend, and I think marzipan's going to feature quite heavily. So that often works really well for people.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, what you need to do is, test and try these things in training and know, what works for you. And if that stops working for you in the race, well, I can go to this because I know that works as well. And if that stops working, well, I can go to this. And, if that stops working, well, I've got my emergency Mars bar, Snickers bar, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that's the key thing there.
Okay, so work out what you like there then, Tina. I think a lot of this is just getting ideas to try, isn't it? Because you just got to try it out yourself. But one thing...
Everything about the kind of GI distress and, or not even necessarily distress, but kind of that taste fatigue is having some of these flavours that will just refresh your palate. Mint. Having some mints will just clear your mouth, clear your head, clear your palate. Ginger. There's... is it ginger root?
Yeah.
it is ginger root, isn't it? The drinks company, they do gels and drinks.
Ginger Active, is it called?
Yes.
Yeah, and everything's based on ginger.
Ginger
you can get ginger and mint.
Yeah. I've tried some of their stuff in the past, and it's good. But I'll often have some mint, or use like Fisherman Friends, or something really strong like that, as a way just to refresh the palate. And just clear that out there. Or have something, ginger biscuits, ginger hobnobs is a great way just to kind of refresh things up a little bit. So that might be something to have in your drop bag.
Yeah, definitely. There's all really good ideas. There's quite a few nutrition films as well on Wild Ginger Running already, so I'll have to look them out and put them in. I'll just type this on here so that I remember that. Nutrition films, and then I'll link people to like a nutrition playlist in the film description. So the last thing that she asks about is probably something more specific, really, which is the strength workouts. She's been trying some of the ones that she's seen you post on your Instagram, but are there any specific things that one should add to a weekly routine for such a long race? Yes, that's a big question.
It is. It's obviously needs specific, depending on who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. I think when it comes to these events, as runners, we often think about needing to train our legs, our hips, things like that. But when you're carrying a larger pack with a bit more of that mandatory equipment in there, your food, your water, that ends up being quite a significant amount of weight. It could be up to easily 10% of your body weight. Depends on obviously how big you are. If you're a particularly small person, it could be more than 10% of your body weight.
10 kilograms could be, of course. It's more than 10%
exactly.
of someone's.
It could be a significant. I've worked with a runner who, the lightest they could get their spine pack was 20% of their body weight.
Wow! Oh my goodness!
Which is significant weight, and that changes the way that you can run and hike. It does turn you into more of a hiker rather than a runner. So getting your pack as light as possible is obviously really, really important. But when it comes to the gym and the strength training, where I'm going with this is you need to think about your shoulders.
Okay.
You need to think about your trunk and your lower back. the number of, these kind of 200-mile plus races where I've seen people, particularly kind of middle and back of the packers, and she's thinking about it can be a 90-hour finish. We're talking about people towards the back of the pack. And it can often be their shoulders that are letting them down. The legs are still going, but they can't carry the pack anymore because their shoulders are destroyed. Mm-hmm. So it's thinking about, have you built up your upper shoulders, your trapezius, in order to be able to take the weight of your pack? Have you got enough muscle bulk there to stop those straps digging in? And really kind of put a lot of pressure on the nerves and the blood vessels at the top of your shoulder. So that's, something that people often don't think about. Hiking packs, think about your background with hiking and mountaineering and walking. A lot of those rucksacks are designed to distribute the weight through the waist belt, aren't they? Running packs don't. They put the weight through the shoulders. Mm. So it's looking at, how can we maybe even adapt the shoulder straps? Do you need to put more padding in there? Do you need to? So Joe from Nav4 is famous for modifying and adapting packs, isn't it? So do you need to look at some of the things that he's done back over the years?
Yeah,
or get your pack sent away. Yeah, exactly.
Like
in order to distribute the weight a little bit more over a larger area. But certainly, doing some more work on strengthening your shoulders, strengthening your upper back, strengthening your lower back. So that, again, the weight of the pack isn't then stressing your lower back and therefore your hips. So I would say, yes, there's going to be the obvious of doing your squats, doing your step ups, your lunges, your deadlifts, calf raises, all of this stuff. Yes. But don't forget the upper body. And if you are going to be using poles, you've got to work on the arms to strengthen them for using the poles as well.
Yeah.
So it is looking at the whole body.
What exercises would you suggest? Like, there's that thing in the gym, isn't there, where it's like a lat pull down? Like, is that the kind of thing?
So it's going to be, it's going to be things like you might be doing more sort of farmer's walk, so carrying heavy weights, so very heavy dumbbells.
Okay.
Doing some shoulder shrugs, doing some shoulder presses. Working into your press ups and your rows, just to really build up the whole of your shoulder girdle.
Yeah.
So there's lots you can be building in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it's about building that into your routines.
And then and like maybe some core as well for that lower back area.
Absolutely.
Like I've just started to work with a local PT of old that I know to force me to do strength and conditioning every week. And he has me doing like a V-sit and then like lifting the legs straight up and down.
Yes.
I can't do it with my hands, so like legs straight up and down. And the other day he put a step, like a aerobic step there, and I had to lift the legs over the step and back and over the step whilst like clenching my stomach, and oh my goodness, it's really hard. So if you can do any of that, Tina, then you're well on the way. That's
it. And it's trying to minimize the lean that you can end up getting. So lots of side. It's not just about working the abdominals at the front, but the side. So doing your obliques, side planks, reverse planks, strengthening your lower back muscles. So kind of back extensions, this type of work.
Yeah.
So all of that.
Yeah. So every morning, Tina, pick 5 different exercises and off you go. Have you got any sort of training plans that Tina can, and anyone else who wants to do any sort of long distance event and be strong for it like that? Have you got any plans on the Wild Ginger running area of training peaks that we can follow?
I haven't put one on there yet. We did talk about that. I have got one that's not published. So what I'll do is I'll get that published and copy it over onto the Wild Ginger running page as well. Yeah. So if anyone is signing up for sort of 200-mile plus, then that maybe gives you a starting point.
Yeah. Well, and like everybody, go and look on Tim's page on Training Peaks, because he's got loads of training plans and loads of exercise routines and everything that you need to successfully make yourself strong to run an ultra. But it seems like the running is the least of Tina's worries for this / walking, and mostly it's going to be about eating right, making sure her feet don't get blistered, and becoming strong.
It's it's an extension of what we talked about on some of our other conversations, preparing for 100-mile races, is that, yes, the actual training and fitness becomes a smaller percentage of the kind of pie in terms of where the emphasis needs to go. Excuse me. It's the the mental skills, it's the decision making, it's making the right decisions at the right time.
Yeah.
It's the prior preparation and planning that goes into these things. But in terms of the training for this, you're not going to go out and do 100-mile training runs to prepare for a 200-mile race.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to have some bigger weekends doing some back-to-backs to kind of learn what it's like to be moving on tired feet. But it's always that trade-off between learning these things and not running the risk of overloading and getting injured. So it's about, you've got to build as big an aerobic engine as possible. So that is going to come obviously from running. But as you mentioned here, there's going to be a lot of walking in an event like this. So we've talked about this for 100-mile training plans, which is you've just got to try and build up the amount of walking you do in your life.
Yeah.
Walk to the shops, walk the kids to school, walk, get a dog and walk a dog, borrow a dog,
steal a dog,
whatever it needs to be. No, that's not. It's just trying to build as much of that sort of low-level zone zero movement activity into life so that you're used to being on your feet but moving at the same time. Get a standing desk, and I know people that train for these things and they've just got one of those desk treadmills where they're just slow, just steadily walking away whilst at their standing desk.
That's a good idea. Why don't I do that?
Really well. Yeah, that can work. If it is a case of I've got a desk job, I need to be at a computer 8 hours a day. Well, I've done any of my Teams meetings where I just need to be listening and maybe contributing just a few little bits.
Yeah.
I'll do on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I can do a 2-hour Teams meeting and knock out 2 hours of hiking up a hill.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, brilliant. I hadn't thought about that.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. Well, I hope you feel a bit more prepared, Tina. And this will be turned into a podcast, so you could listen to this again on your long run. And that might be a nice way to revise continuously all the things that Tim has said here. But if you have got any other questions, then just come back to us. And if any other patrons have got any questions, then do just drop me a line on the patron messaging service. And if I can't answer it, I will ask Coach Tim, and we shall provide. But before we finish, we've got a couple more questions from other people. So just wanted to recap on a question from Peter. He wanted to repeat his question about long hill runs because he's training for a hilly race and he's living in a really flat place. Tim mentioned some exercises he should be doing. And Tim has provided some details in the patron Facebook group. You linked to your Instagram, didn't you, Tim? And you've got let's not reveal it here so that people have to go on your Instagram and check out the latest post. But there's one simple move, isn't there, that you can do to help you train for a hilly race in a flat place whilst you're doing your run.
That's it. I think it's just adding lunges in.
Oh, you've told everyone now, Tim. They're not going to go and look. We're going to keep it secret.
Yeah, they're going to go and do it. No, they can go and have a look on Instagram. That'd be great.
Yeah, go and have a look for the demo on Instagram, on Tim's Instagram.
Yeah,
for
that's
the latest post. I've linked to it below as well in the film description.
So, but that's it. And even just doing, either whether it's mid-run or after you run, your classic, John Roach's 3-minute hill legs, mountain legs, whatever he calls it, where, at the end of your run, you just go and do 3 minutes of lunges and step-ups.
Okay.
It just builds in that little bit of extra stimulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of strength.
Yeah, so doing your lunges. So if anyone's training for a hilly race, pop onto Tim's Instagram and see a demo of what he's doing there, because it's really good. And you won't look odd at all doing that around the park.
No, but we're ultra runners. We wear silly clothing, and we look odd, so it's not a problem.
We don't care. Yeah, and then a final question from Arlene, who says, I don't know if Tim can answer this for me, but I recently had a DEXA scan. I'm 55. I found out that I have osteopenia in the hip and osteoporosis of the spine. I've been in shock since then, and I've not been doing much trail running, although I did do a 50k walk in April. I've fallen many times while running and haven't broken anything except my nose. Oh dear, that sounds bad. And but am I finished with trail running? Can Tim suggest any exercises to improve bone density? I should add that people over 50, especially women, need to think about, oh no, I've cut off the end bit, here we are, about bone building exercises. Yeah. What do we say to Arlene then, Tim? Is it the end of the road for her as regards trail running?
No, not necessarily. I mean, she needs to obviously
Hurrah.
speak to her medical team. Depends on obviously the degree of osteopenia and degree of osteoporosis. But you can certainly improve bone density. I've worked with people in the past who have increased their bone density through exercise and training. Obviously, she needs to make sure she's working with a medical team in terms of medication and thinking about diet as well. So, she said in her question there, people over the age of 50 need to think about this. It's more about sort of girls in their teens and early 20s who need to be thinking about this, because that's where you lay your bone down. So you peak your bone density in your teens and early 20s. So the important thing is getting as much bone density in there as possible at that stage of life.
Okay.
Because if you start from a higher peak, you've got a longer tail off before you then reach any, whether it is osteopenia or full-on osteoporosis.
Does that make you heavier then if you've got denser bones? Like, is that a really stupid question?
No, it's just about stronger.
Oh, okay. So is it more little connective bits within the bone structure?
Yeah, just more mineral density within the bones. So, yeah. So yeah, but in terms of, if you have identified that you are osteopenic or osteoporotic, then it's about making sure that you're looking at, you can be taking medication to minimise that loss of bone mass. Making sure you're looking at your nutrition. So, particularly us in the Northern Hemisphere, a large chunk of the year, we're not seeing the sun, so we're not getting vitamin D. So is making sure you're looking at vitamin D and your sort of calcium to support the bone health there. And then it's about load-bearing exercise. So, a great way to strengthen your bones is running.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of don't run, because that's not going to improve things. What we've seen is actually doing running can improve bone density.
Hurrah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, we can certainly minimise that decline, and in some cases even reverse some of that decline. So, yes, it's about obviously talking with your medical team, because obviously everyone's an individual, making sure that is a safe thing to do. But yeah, even within the spinal column, we've shown that we can improve the strength and density within the spinal column through impact exercises such as running. So it's not a case of running is then not in the picture, not allowed. No, certainly it can be, as long as it's done in a controlled way. She mentioned there about sort of falls. Obviously, the risk factor is if you have got weaker bones and you fall, then you're at a higher risk of obviously breaking something, and then all the complications that come along with that. So what I would say is you need to be looking at why are these falls happening? Because, is that a case of working on balance? Is it strength and stability? Is it coordination, or are there other reasons for why falls are happening? So again, it's maybe working with the medical team to explore why these falls are maybe happening and address that.
Yeah, that's very sound advice. I hope that helps you, Arlene. And I think that brings us to the end of the chat here today. Thank you so much, Tim. I'll just do the little sponsored by NAC bit, and then we'll do the where can we follow Tim bit. So thank you very much to NAC Sports Nutrition sponsoring the live broadcast and podcast. Definitely looking forward to eating more of the gels, the new gels on my next run. And also I'm going to try the cricket protein bars as well. They were sold out last time I looked, but I will look again because that sounds definitely very interesting. If you want to try some, use code WorldGingerRunning for 15% off at uk.nac.com. So, Tim, how can we follow you? And have you got any spaces left for coaching? And is it just coaching, or can people just buy a training plan? Yes, they can.
Yes, they can. Following, so social media for the kind of coaching side of things is Instagram. So Tim Pigott, HP3 on Instagram. The website is hp-3.co.uk. and there you can get links to the training plans. We've got a separate page, particularly for your patrons. So again, you can maybe link to that where there's some specific training plans for you guys.
Yeah, that's in the film description below, or the podcast show notes as well.
Yeah. So if anybody is needing any coaching support, I mean my roster's full, but I've got a couple of assistant coaches that I look after and work with me. They've got a couple of spaces available from a sort of, say, long distance running triathlon background. So anybody doing any kind of events like that, we can certainly help you out. Or if it is, we talked about strength training. We've got strength training plans available as well. Or if you're needing just specific strength support, Morgan's available there, our strength and conditioning coach. If anybody's needing additional nutrition guiding and advice there, we've got our nutritionists, Liz and Howard, that work with the team. We've got a full support team available that you can kind of dip in and out of if you're not needing full-on one-to-one coaching support.
Yeah, and it is just so important to invest, especially over the age of 40. I think myself, I'm 41. It's very important to invest in strength and your body as a whole. And also, I haven't told you this yet, Tim, but my book's out on the 12th of September, and Tim was very instrumental in the training part of the book. I've just popped a picture up of it there. It's the Ultimate Ultra Running Handbook, and so Tim basically provided all of the training plans from 50k up until 160k, so that's like 100 miles, and then I sort of created a sort of easy version of Tim's amazing training plans as well for people who just want to get round. So there's two types of training plans on there: push it to the limit and just want to get round. So thanks so much, Tim, for all your work on sending me those plans for the book, and I hope everybody enjoys having those generic plans in the book. And if you do feel like you need a more personal touch, obviously Tim is there as well to coach you through your individual needs.
All good, absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so pre-order the book now, everybody, and follow Tim on Instagram and buy one of his training plans. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time, Tim. Thank you.
Cheers, Claire. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.